Imagine walking into a room filled with quiet voices, subtle glances, and hidden stories. The air is thick with agreement, a silent contract underpinning every conversation. You're the only one who seems to see the cracks in the smiles, the tension behind the laughter. You wonder if anyone else is asking the same question you do, late at night, staring at the ceiling. Why are you expected to give yourself away, to marry, just because everyone says you should? You sense it in your gut, a vague feeling that something is off. You don't know why, but you know. The pressure is familiar. You feel the expectation echo through your bones, the ancient rhythm of tradition tapping at your soul. You're a man, and they say it's time. But you hesitate. This is where your journey begins. With a question, not an answer. You're searching for truth, not an escape. You want to know what's lurking beneath the customs, what's hiding behind the word marriage. That's why you're still reading. Because you know that men are told to marry without understanding what they're sacrificing. And you're not willing to pay a price just because it's expected. Tonight, you're allowed to doubt. You're allowed to peer behind the curtain of social programming. Your mind is hungry for clarity. So breathe. Let the anxiety simmer as you probe deeper into the habits, the psychology, the emotions that define the game of love and commitment. This isn't a rebellion. It's a reckoning. The pain is real. You feel it every time you're misunderstood, rejected, or told to man up. Confusion slides in when your honest words meet blank stares and closed doors. Trust is currency, but you weren't told it's easier spent than earned. Every relationship builds your hope, only to undermine it with reminders, you need to settle down. The cycle is suffocating. You offer your authentic self, only to see doubt flicker in their eyes. They want certainty, but you're wired for change, for growth, for discovery. You search for understanding and run into walls built of shallow communication. Emotions become negotiation points. Attraction turns transactional. You wonder if anyone actually knows what marriage is, or if they just follow the patterns out of habit. Psychology tells you about attachment, avoidance, and maladaptive behaviors. But the streets are more honest. You witness divorces that rip apart not just households, but identities. Every split leaves a scar, a lesson engraved in the way you think, the way you move, the way you communicate. The pain of betrayal echoes louder when it's emotional cheating, not just adultery. You see men breaking, quietly, behind closed doors. You promise yourself you'll never be like them. This knowledge is heavy, but it's the start of power. You must question the entire architecture. What are relationships built on? Who profits? Why does trust evaporate when paper meets pen, when rings are exchanged and individual dreams are made subordinate to a contract? Listen carefully. You've heard married men talk. But they don't talk, they confess. Low tones. Hushed admissions. Subtle resentment and confusion tucked into every word. They recall the moments attraction faded into obligation. Passion slipped quietly into routine. Their confidence dissolved. They became spectators in their own relationships. You won't be fooled by the old playbook. You study habits, you dissect emotions, you analyze your thinking. You see what most ignore, how marriage conditions a man to shrink, to retreat, to rationalize his own sacrifice. Communication in marriage isn't dialogue, it's damage control. You learn to measure your words, gauge the mood, anticipate accusations. Adultery isn't just physical, it's emotional, subtle, and relentless. Trust corrodes beneath the surface, hidden from view. You realize that understanding is rare. Spouses operate like adversaries, desperate to prove loyalty but terrified to expose vulnerability. Divorce is not a tragedy, it's an inevitability in a system designed to magnify flaws and suppress strengths. You observe men who lose themselves trying to salvage a union that bleeds them empty. You hear promises, then watch them become threats. The mask starts slipping. You stop believing in seamless partnerships. The science backs you up. Marriages rarely elevate a man, statistics prove it. Mental health declines, confidence wanes, risks increase. You don't need more evidence. You need permission to reject an arrangement that offers no genuine reward. What is marriage, exactly? Strip away the poetry, the rituals, the Instagram moments. You're left with a contract, a legal transaction with emotional landmines. Society whispers that commitment is noble, but reality screams that it's dangerous. You ignore the noise and look for patterns. You find cycles: attraction, honeymoon, tension, collapse, divorce. Men aren't taught to navigate this terrain. You learn about communication, but you're never warned about the silence, those quiet nights when you stare at your spouse, wondering when you actually stop talking. Emotional cheating breaks you slowly. Adultery is just the final nail. Trust leaks away drip by drip. Understanding becomes impossible because no one dares to be honest. You're told to chase marriage, but you see the game. You see friends who become strangers, partners who become rivals. You witness arguments built on habits, not truth. Spouses exchange apologies that mean nothing. Divorce lawyers profit from the wreckage. The system thrives on your confusion. Every time you think about marriage, you remember these scenes. You analyze the science behind attraction. You study the psychology of commitment. You collect stories of men who lost themselves for something they never truly wanted. Each tale is a warning carved into your subconscious. You crave clarity. You crave strength. You want to wake up without the burden of someone else's expectations pressed into your thoughts. You recognize how habits run the show: morning rituals, passive-aggressive texts, rehearsed complaints. You feel the tug of emotions demanding compromise, draining your confidence. You start to imagine freedom. You see the alternative. Relationships don't have to be traps. You don't need marriage to communicate, to find attraction, to build trust. You see through the illusions, how marriage feeds on insecurity, how it promises understanding but delivers anxiety. You trust your instincts and refuse to negotiate your identity for tradition. The psychology is clear if you dare to see it. Emotional habits govern your thinking, and marriage amplifies every defect. The science is brutal: your mental health will be challenged, your self-esteem will be tested, your peace will be hijacked. You won't be the man you were before. You'll either shrink or fight back. Tonight, you choose awareness. You honor the pain, but you also name the strength inside you. You reject marriage not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You claim the right to transform, to reinvent yourself, to communicate on your own terms. Your confidence is reborn, not because you followed the script, but because you tore it up. You live in a world obsessed with appearances. Smooth wedding photos, carefully curated stories about soulmates and everlasting unity. Swipe. Scroll. Double tap. Each image is a lure. In reality, you know what's behind the headlines. The silent statistics. The psychology textbooks. The eyes dulled by disillusion. Behind every perfect couple is a private conflict, a drama played out in text messages and after-midnight confrontations over trust and loyalty. You become the analyst. You assess the subtle shifts in body language, the layered meanings in casual jokes. Marriage is meant to be an anchor, but anchors can drown you. Watching others, you see how confidence erodes over time, compressed by the constant negotiation of needs and unspoken rules. Understanding becomes a battle, and no one wants to lose. Science makes it clear: the emotional experience of marriage is a labyrinth, not a sanctuary. Habits formed in pursuit of harmony slowly morph into routines of resentment. You notice how cheating doesn't even require physical presence. Emotional betrayals happen in the mind, through memory, fantasy, and regret. You see men whose eyes are distant even when their partners sit beside them. You never wanted to pretend, and you refuse to start now. It's not bravado, it's intelligence. You see through the performance, the rituals, the promises. You watch men who were lions become sheep, all for an arrangement far deadlier than solitude. Ask yourself, what is attraction in marriage, anyway? How does it mutate once the ink dries, the vows fade, and habits dominate? You witness it firsthand, how desire transforms into duty. Passion slips into expectation, spontaneity crushed under schedules and chores. You listen to men talk about their wives, and realize they speak more about avoidance than longing. You start recognizing the psychological traps. Communication becomes reactive, never proactive. Apologies are recited, not felt. Intimacy is rationed, guarded, sometimes weaponized. Your thinking narrows, boxed in by what the relationship demands, not what you desire. Science calls it adaptation, but you call it slow suffocation. Divorce sits on the horizon, an unspoken threat. You see the statistics spike, families unravel, bank accounts gutted, children deployed as hostages in emotional warfare. Men who once believed in romantic victory learn the precise meaning of loss. You understand that marriage isn't about gaining a partner, it's about negotiating freedom. Most men lose the negotiation, quietly, steadily. You collect these truths, and they shape your own habits. You refuse to mistake routine for stability, obligation for intimacy. You realize the cost of sacrificing your inner compass for a temporary sense of belonging. You become a ghost in your own narrative if you choose marriage. So you choose something else. Let's talk about cheating. Not the scandalized headlines, forget physical adultery for a moment. Think deeper. Emotional cheating. Fantasy. Those moments your partner seeks validation elsewhere, shares secrets you will never hear. You see men destroyed not by passion, but by silence. The betrayal isn't always visible. Sometimes it's coded in a text, a look, a forgotten conversation. You've studied psychology. You know there's a reason emotional infidelity cuts deeper, it erodes your identity. It sows doubt and suspicion. It hijacks your confidence and poisons your trust. You realize communication is not safety, it's exposure. You ask yourself if marriage is the optimal environment for loyalty, or a breeding ground for temptation. Even the science agrees, monogamy is an illusion maintained by constant vigilance, endless agreements, invisible sacrifice. Emotionally, men are left writhing in uncertainty, second-guessing every word spoken, every glance exchanged. You see the pain in the faces of those who've lived it, who've survived the mind games and the gradual loss of hope. You recall their stories when people urge you to get married. You counter every social script with hard evidence, every marriage myth with a personal ghost. You become immune to seduction, inoculated by reality. Trust. The myth that keeps the machine running. You're trained to offer it freely, to treat it as the foundation of commitment. But you see how trust fractures under pressure. Spouses are suspects, not allies. Communication becomes surveillance, honesty a calculated risk. You speak your mind and watch the ground shift beneath your words. The emotional arc is brutal. You begin with hope, navigate confusion, experience pain, swallow rejection. You cycle through self-doubt as each misunderstanding multiplies. Habits form not for connection, but for defense. You build walls and call them boundaries, but they're prisons in disguise. You mistrust not just your spouse, but yourself, a psychological two-front war. Divorce is the resolution society refuses to acknowledge. It's packaged as a tragedy, but everyone expects it. The statistics confirm your fear. You see men reinvent themselves after divorce, but the scars remain. Their thinking is changed forever, attraction becomes suspicion, communication punctuated by caution. You realize trust is not natural in marriage, it has to be manufactured, policed, defended. Understanding is always one step away, unattainable in the fog of rituals and role-playing. You choose authenticity over trust, reality over illusion. You've always admired inner strength. Real confidence. The kind you can't fake. You recognize how marriage drains it, slowly, systematically. Every disagreement chips away at certainty. Every compromise reshapes your core. You find yourself living for someone else's doubts, performing to meet shifting expectations. You miss the days when you answered only to yourself. You begin to see the liberation in solitude. The science is behind you. Men thrive when they chase self-mastery, not social approval. Your habits transform, assertiveness replaces apology, discovery replaces routine. You learn that your value is not determined by relationship status. Confidence isn't a shared resource, it's built in isolation, in trial, in refusal to submit. You study those who broke away. You analyze their resilience, their growth. Divorce didn't kill them, it woke them up. You notice how their communication shifts, how their eyes burn brighter, how their attraction feels genuine again. You abandon the story you've been fed. You design your own narrative. You trust your vision, not their blueprint. Emotions become fuel, not chains. You have no spouse to misunderstand you, no marriage contract to limit you. You say yes only when you mean it.
That's
to be
it.
misunderstood
Nice and
is to
steady.
be dismissed.
You got it.
Marriage turns
Look, Grandpa,
misunderstandings
I
into
finished
habits.
It's beautiful.
A
Well
misplaced
done.
word, a forgotten gesture, an emotion unexpressed, these become ammunition. You're told to adapt, to explain, to apologize for your nature. You start speaking in code, hoping to bypass arguments. You lose fluency in your own language. Think about the psychology. Spouses become case studies. Every conversation is freighted with expectation and hidden meaning. You notice the subtle shifts, a sigh loaded with accusation, a tiny change in tone signaling withdrawal. The emotional landscape is mined with triggers. You tiptoe across it, sacrificing confidence for peace that never arrives. This is the heart of frustration. You remember who you were before marriage was suggested, a creator, a risk-taker, an explorer of desires. Now you're asked to play a role, be a caretaker, manage someone else's moods as if they are your destiny. Your thinking is changed, your mind made smaller by the demands of understanding. You see through it now. You refuse to drape your inner chaos in the curtain of marital logic. You won't let habits born out of frustration sculpt your personality. Understanding is an individual sport. Few play it well. Most submit. Men grow in solitude, this is fact, not opinion. You study the arc, those who resist marriage gain intensity, innovation, depth. Your habits become sharper, your mind less cluttered by someone else's unpredictability. Emotional cheating, attraction, trust, these become games played by others, not by you. Science isn't sentimental. It declares that men who prioritize purpose over partnership live longer, adapt faster, recover deeper. You ask street philosophers, and they confirm it, marriage is the most successful form of self-betrayal. Spouses expect you to trade adventure for routine, vision for compromise. Confidence dies in small doses. You realize your emotions aren't obstacles to be tamed by partnership, they're tools, weapons, fuel. Communication is direct, not filtered. Relationships become opportunities for discovery, not cages for negotiation. You attract curiosity, not compliance. You recognize liberation in moments others call lonely, the freedom to build, destroy, and rebuild who you are. Marriage promises understanding, but rarely delivers. You decide to seek clarity, not comfort. Your thinking pivots, from what you're supposed to be, to who you are when no one is watching. Divorce is the unspoken reality everyone fears. You witness it everywhere, in conversations, in the way men hesitate before speaking about their marriages, in the fatigue that saturates their social lives. Divorce isn't an end, it's just a violent rebranding. You see the patterns and they're always the same: shock, grief, resentment, rebirth. The psychology is brutal. Emotional habits are measured against the destruction, old rituals replaced by new obsessions. Men relearn confidence post-divorce, sometimes for the first time. Trust is dead, understanding a myth, but the pain is honest, and that honesty becomes power. You speak with those who've survived. Every scar on their psyche is a lesson. Habits transform from appeasement to assertion. Relationships are rewritten, boundaries redefined. The street is their therapist, philosophy their medicine. You see attraction born from autonomy, not desperation. You understand now, marriage breeds uncertainty and miscommunication, and divorce exposes the truth. Clarity emerges from chaos. You refuse to wait for a tragedy before granting yourself permission to live as you choose. You examine the art of communication. Marriage complicates it. What was once simple now demands diplomacy, translation, negotiation. You watch men censor themselves, suppress wild desires, dilute ambition to fit someone else's vision. The emotional arc goes from curiosity to cautious silence, and you see their confidence flicker and fade. Science is unequivocal, effective communication thrives outside the bounds of nervous compromise. Trust flourishes in authentic relationships, not in legal contracts. You learn the difference between being heard and being managed. Marriage makes men manage themselves, second-guess their every impulse, rehearse apologies for things they never meant. You desire something raw, connection without transaction, passion unstrained by protocol. Habits become weapons in your arsenal, not restraints on your essence. Attraction becomes a promise to yourself, not an obligation to a spouse. You reject misunderstanding. You cultivate clarity. Emotional honesty replaces the performance of marital affection. You engineer your own world, one free of the subtleties and sorrows that marriage inflicts without remorse. You look into the abyss, searching for the truth behind the traditions. Marriage is designed as a solution, but perpetuates a problem, uncertainty. You understand now that the cultural script is not yours to obey. The greatest confidence is forged in the fire of resistance, not in blind conformity. You sense the liberation in choosing your own story. Every habit reshaped, every emotion reclaimed, every rejection redirected into growth. The psychology is clear: men are not designed to thrive in environments of endless compromise. Relationships become meaningful when they're chosen, not obligated. You master communication. You hone attraction. You define trust and understanding by your standards, no spouse to negotiate away your integrity, no marriage contract to dilute your vision. You wield independence like a sword. Your thinking is transformed. You don't fear divorce, you fear lost time. Your journey is from confusion to power, from pain to clarity. Every day, you rewrite the rules. Every day, you prove you were never meant to fit the mold. You watch as society clings to rituals, desperate for meaning. The wedding ring, the vows, the annual anniversaries, all designed to reassure, to mask the uncertainty simmering beneath the surface. You remember the faces at every wedding you've attended, fixed smiles, anxious eyes, a sense of playing a role no one really understands. The tension is always there: will this be the one that lasts, or just another statistical casualty? You won't participate in that performance. The psychology of crowds fascinates you, how easily people substitute habit for hope, illusion for reality. Your mind refuses to surrender to the fear of being alone. You see other men turn restless, ashamed to admit the boredom gnawing at their insides. Marriage becomes their prison, keeping them locked inside cycles of frustration and silent regret. You learn that real confidence is born in moments when you stand outside the circle. The freedom from validation, the release from expectation, these aren't losses, they're revelations. Conversation becomes richer, attraction less desperate, trust self-generated and abundant. You no longer have to explain your choices to anyone. The science is on your side. Men flourish on paths they clear themselves. Solitude is not emptiness, it is a wellspring waiting to be tapped. Marriage drains it dry. You become content in the quiet, powerful in your decision to remain unclaimed. The habits of free men differ from those encaged by vows. You wake up early, not because you must, but because you want. You set goals with no compromise. Your thinking is no longer filtered through someone else's anxieties. Emotions rise and fall, belonging to you alone. Confidence becomes a natural extension, not a display. You notice how society tries to guilt you. When will you settle down? Don't you want someone to come home to? Each question is a projection, a confession of their own fears. You return every question with silent amusement. You don't owe anyone your breakdown. You don't need to justify wanting more. You recognize the subtle traps. Emotional labor disguised as responsibility. Cheating normalized by routine. Divorce accepted as inevitability. The odds are clear, marriage is not designed for men like you. You rewrite the narrative, relationships that add value, not chains. Communication that invites curiosity, not control. Attraction that grows in the shadows of your independence. No ceremony required. You consider the concept of trust once more. You realize, finally, that trust is not a product of vows, it is a state of mind. You no longer seek reassurance from rituals or signatures from the state. Relationships become experiments, not contracts. Understanding is mutual or it simply ends. Your confidence is fed by your refusal to submit, by your choice to stay vigilant, awake, alive. You see men reeling after divorce, realizing too late what was lost in compromise. But you notice something else: those who resist, the outliers, create worlds far more vivid, passion undiluted by routine, clarity unhindered by compromise. Your own habits now center on creation, not maintenance. You aren't performing for anyone. You share, but never surrender. You offer understanding, but never as an obligation. The science and the streets agree, the man who stands alone commands his world. You become the exception. Not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. The pain of confusion is replaced by the power of clarity. You live at your own edge, where growth never stops. You look back at the arc, frustration morphing into awareness, confusion transforming into conviction. The emotional pain, the sting of misunderstanding, the relentless urge to explain yourself, all are gone. You review the lessons: marriage demanded too much for too little, relationships lost their impact the moment they became permanent. You know that the only trust worth having is trust in yourself. The only communication that matters is honest, unfiltered, direct. Habits become your own invention. Psychology becomes not a web, but a toolkit. Attraction is drawn to your focus, confidence is your own reward. You recognize the pain in other men's stories as echoes of a path you never walked. You let their caution shape your clarity. You see the myth for what it is: a machine built to harvest male ambition, rebranded as domesticity, and sell it back as security. You have no interest in paying that price. Each day, you live according to a law no ritual can override: liberation is worth every question, every challenge, every moment of solitude. You are the author. You decide. Now, imagine your future. You wake up with the weight of tradition lifted. No longing for validation, no fear of being misunderstood, no loyalty traded for routine. You walk through life unburdened, every habit a choice, every emotion a tool, every thought sharp with possibility. You do not need a marriage contract to define your worth. You do not need a spouse to teach you trust, or a ceremony to bless your confidence. Your relationships are pure, born of mutual respect and curiosity, not enforced expectation. Communication is a celebration, not a negotiation. You step out of the cycle, into your own story. You are liberated, no longer shackled by society's blueprint. Your vision is unclouded, your power is undiminished. Men should never marry, not because of fear, but because of knowledge. Because true strength is sculpted from self-determination. Because clarity outlives ritual, and meaning is made, not given. You choose freedom, and that makes all the difference.